I always believed that respect was earned, but my boss, Halden, acted like it had to be begged for. I was one of the youngest project coordinators at Zentrotech, and even though I worked hard, he made sure I never felt enough. One slow Monday morning, I stood by the office printer, watching a stack of bug reports spit out for our new software update. I was exhausted from staying late all week. When Halden walked toward me, I expected another small dig. Instead, he smirked and said, "Nia, don't get too comfortable. People like you are never irreplaceable." He didn't even wait for my answer. He just walked away like my feelings meant nothing. I swallowed the sting and kept working, but his words stayed with me the rest of the day. At lunch, my coworker Jada slid into the seat across from me and whispered, "Don't let him get in your head. He treats everyone like that." Maybe she was right, but it didn't make the ache less. That night, as I drove home, I kept replaying the moment. Something inside me hardened. If Halden really thought I was replaceable, then he had no idea what was coming. The next day started like any other until it didn't. I reached my desk at 7:50 a.m., logged in, and opened my project dashboard. My stomach nodded. Several tasks I completed last week were marked as overdue. Not missing, overdue. As if I hadn't done them at all. I clicked through the audit logs. Someone had changed the timestamps.
My heart thumped.
Only someone with manager access could do that. I hurried to Jada. "Look at this." She leaned over my screen, and her eyes widened. "Nia, this looks like someone is setting you up." My mind instantly went to Halden, but I pushed the thought away. It felt too wild. Before I could dig deeper, Halden appeared behind me. "My office," he said sharply.
I followed him in.
He shut the door, crossed his arms, and stared like he wanted me to melt. "I've been hearing concerns about your work," he announced. "I completed everything," I said, voice shaking. He raised a brow. "Then why does the system show otherwise?" I opened my mouth to explain, but he lifted a hand. "Save it. If you want to stay here, you need to prove you can keep up." He dismissed me. When I stepped out, something inside me snapped awake. If he wanted a fight, he was about to get the quietest one he'd ever seen. That afternoon, I stayed late. Not to work. This time, to watch. I opened the access logs again and stared at the names. Most were normal, but then I saw something that made my breath freeze. A series of edits tied to Halden's admin ID, all done around 11:45 p.m. He had changed my completed tasks himself. For a long time I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling heat rise in my chest. Why me? Of all the people he could target, why me? At 8:10 p.m., the cleaning crew came in, breaking my thoughts. I packed my bag and left the office with shaking hands. Outside, the night air hit my face, cool and sharp. I walked to my car slowly, thinking, if Halden was trying to push me out, I needed proof before he made a bigger move. When I got home, I opened my laptop, logged into the remote server, and screenshotted everything, timestamps, IDs, edits. Then I saved them all on an external drive. My heart was heavy, but something new pulsed under it. Determination. Halden thought I was weak. He had no idea who he was messing with. The next morning, things got worse. I walked into the office to find 2 HR reps waiting beside my desk. My pulse jumped. "Morning, Nia," the taller one said politely. "We need you for a quick meeting." HR never meant anything good. They led me into a small room with pale walls and no windows. Halden was already inside, pretending to look surprised. "We've had some concerns about your recent performance," HR began. "We received reports about missing work, late deadlines, and poor coordination." Halden nodded like he had nothing to do with it. I kept my face calm. "I completed every task assigned to me," I said. "And I have proof of edits being changed." The HR reps paused. Halden's eyes flickered, just slightly, but I saw it. "Proof?" one of them asked.
"Yes."
"Someone with admin access changed timestamps on my work." Halden leaned forward. "Are you accusing me of misconduct?" His voice was icy, dangerous. I didn't back down. I'm saying something isn't right. HR wrote notes, but the meeting ended with no clear answer. As I walked out, Halden murmured behind me, "Be careful what you claim, Nia." A chill crawled up my spine. I realized he wasn't just trying to push me out, he wanted to bury me. By the next morning, the whole office felt different. People glanced at me, then quickly looked away. Some whispered. Some avoided me completely. It hit me then, Halden had already started poisoning the air. I opened my inbox and found 3 emails calling me unreliable. Each one was sent to team leads across departments. My chest tightened. I slammed my laptop shut and rushed outside to breathe. Jada followed me. "He's trying to make you look bad before you can defend yourself," she said. "Why?" I whispered. "I never did anything to him." Jada bit her lip. "He hates anyone he can't control. You're one of the few people who doesn't suck up to him." As the truth sank in, something inside me hardened even more. When I went back inside, Halden passed me in the hallway and gave me a fake smile. "Rough morning." I didn't respond. But as he walked off, I knew what I had to do. Document everything, get more proof, and wait for the right moment. Quiet revenge wasn't loud. It was slow, steady, and sharp. That afternoon, I reviewed every message, task update, and system edit from the past 6 months. I looked for patterns, mistakes, anything that connected back to Halden. And I found something big. 3 major project delays from earlier in the year, delays Halden blamed on team errors, were triggered by edits under his ID. He had moved deadlines, changed assignments, and even deleted internal notes. He had been sabotaging people long before me. My chest tightened with anger and fear. How many others had he ruined? At 6 p.m. When the office was empty, I copied every piece of evidence onto my external drive. Then I backed it up again on cloud storage. As I walked out, the security guard nodded at me. "Late again, Nia?" "Just catching up," I said, hiding my shaking hands. In the parking lot, I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the office windows glowing in the dark. I wasn't just protecting myself anymore. I was building a case strong enough to expose him. And I wasn't stopping until he felt every ounce of the fear he had put on others. The next day, Halden cornered me by the break room. "HR has a follow-up meeting with you tomorrow," he said. "You might want to reflect on your behavior." I met his eyes. "I have nothing to reflect on." He smirked. "We'll see." He left before I could answer. For the rest of the day, I worked quietly, pretending to be nervous. In reality, I was watching everything. Who spoke to Halden, who avoided him, and who seemed to know more than they should. Near the end of the day, something strange happened. I caught Halden in a heated whispering argument with a senior developer named Dario. I couldn't hear their words, but their faces were tight and serious. After Dario walked away, he passed my desk and murmured low, "Watch your back, Nia." A shiver ran through me. That night, I stayed late again, hidden behind a tall row of filing cabinets near the project room. At 10:12 p.m., I heard footsteps, Halden's, unmistakable. He entered the server area, typed something fast, and left a few minutes later. As soon as he was gone, I checked the logs remotely. Another edit. Another attempt to bury me. He had no idea I was watching, or that I was ready. The HR meeting the next day felt like walking into a storm. The same 2 reps sat across from me, but something about their expressions looked different, more serious, more cautious. "We've reviewed additional reports," one began. Halden sat beside them, pretending to be calm, but bouncing his knee under the table. "We need you to explain why so many of your tasks appear changed or incomplete," the rep continued. I took a slow breath and opened my folder. "Before I answer, I want you to see something." I slid the printed logs across the table. Their eyes widened as they scanned the timestamps. "These edits were done after midnight," I said. "I wasn't even in the building." The second rep frowned. "These were done using a manager ID." My heart pounded as they looked at Halden. He crossed his arms. "Anyone could have hacked it." I lifted my chin. "Then explain why the physical entry logs show you entering the server room after 10 p.m. last night." The room froze. Halden's mouth tightened. The HR reps exchanged a quick look. One of them said, "We need time to evaluate this." As I walked out, Halden grabbed my arm. "You're going to regret this," he hissed. But for the first time, I didn't feel afraid. I felt powerful. The next day, everything felt heavier. People were whispering even more. Some stared openly when I walked past. The tension was thick, like everyone sensed something big coming. At lunch, I sat outside with my sandwich, trying to relax. But my thoughts kept spinning. Why did Halden target me so aggressively? Why the rush to remove me? Then it hit me, my project. I was the only one managing the new rollout for our biggest client. If the project failed, someone needed to take the blame. And Halden had chosen me. I pushed my sandwich away, appetite gone. Later that afternoon, Dario stopped by my desk. "You didn't hear this from me," he murmured, "but Halden has a history. People who speak against him suddenly get written up or pushed out. Why doesn't anyone report him?" I whispered. "Because he has friends upstairs," Dario said quietly. "Powerful ones." A cold wave washed over me. So I wasn't just fighting Halden. I was fighting whatever protection he had behind him. But I already had something he didn't know about, his own digital footprints. I just needed the right moment to make them matter. That evening, I decided to work from home. I brewed coffee, sat at my desk, and reviewed the entire project structure. Something didn't line up. The code version numbers. Someone had quietly pushed a broken version of the software into the release folder, right where my final build was supposed to go. If that version had been launched, it would have crashed instantly, and I would have taken the blame. My chest tightened with anger. I dug deeper, checking every log attached to the wrong file. There it was again. Halden's ID. But this time, I found something even more shocking. Another manager's ID tied to the same update, someone named Rowan from the upper office. So Halden wasn't acting alone. I saved every detail. The more I discovered, the more I felt the weight lift off my shoulders. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't making it up. They were plotting, and I had caught them. By midnight, my evidence folder had doubled. Before bed, I whispered to myself, 3 more days. That's all it will take. Because now I knew their pattern and how to turn it against them. The next morning, I got to the office early. I sat down, logged in, and stared at the screen with a calm I didn't fully feel. At 8:30 a.m., Halden walked past my desk and gave a cold smile. "HR will be sending you an update soon." I just nodded. Inside, though, something had shifted. I wasn't the scared girl he thought I was anymore. Around noon, HR emailed me to schedule a final review meeting for Friday morning. That meant I had 2 days to build the perfect trap. I spent the rest of the day doing my normal tasks, at least on the surface. Underneath, I monitored every file, every edit, every move Halden made. At 3:47 p.m., he changed another task under my name. I caught it instantly and saved it. Later, I quietly spoke with our network analyst, Theo, who disliked Halden more than anyone. "The logs don't lie," Theo muttered. "If you want to trace, I can isolate the IP addresses tied to every edit." I almost hugged him. With that, everything would be undeniable. That night, I slept deeper than I had in weeks. Because the storm was coming, but this time, I wasn't the one about to get hit. Thursday morning arrived with a strange sense of calm. I felt like a storm cloud walking into the office, quiet but full of power. I met Theo in the server room before anyone else arrived. "Here," he said, handing me a flash drive. Every edited timestamp, every login, every IP match. If HR ignores this, they're blind. "Thank you," I whispered. He shrugged. "Just make sure it counts." When I stepped out, Halden appeared from another hallway. "Early today?" he asked, voice dripping with fake friendliness. I forced a small smile. "Just preparing for tomorrow." He studied me closely, as if trying to read my thoughts. But he couldn't, because for once, I wasn't afraid of him. By late afternoon, word spread that the Friday meeting would be decisive. Some people even avoided eye contact, afraid to get pulled into whatever mess was coming. At 5 p.m., I packed slowly, letting the rest of the office clear out first. As I walked to my car, wind rushed through the parking lot. Tomorrow was the day everything would break open. And I was ready. Friday morning felt unreal. I woke up still and calm, like my body already knew the outcome. I dressed simply, black sweater, jeans, hair tied back, and drove to the office with the evidence drive in my pocket. When I arrived, HR called me in immediately. The room was different this time. Bosses from 2 departments were there. Even Rowan, the upper-level manager whose ID showed up in the fake build, sat in a corner flipping a pen. Halden sat across from me, arms crossed, eyes sharp. The lead HR rep spoke first. "Nia, we're here to review performance concerns and system irregularities." I nodded. "We'll begin with your explanation," the rep said. I took a deep breath and opened my folder. Everything I say is supported by system logs, timestamps, and server access traces. Then I began. I explained every edit, every midnight entry, every corrupted file. I laid out the IP traces. I showed the shared involvement between Halden and Rowan. The room went silent. Rowan's jaw tightened. Halden turned pale. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. But the evidence wasn't. When I finished, the HR team looked stunned. "This will need immediate review," the rep said. As I left the room, I heard Rowan whisper sharply to Halden. And for the first time, I saw fear in Halden's eyes. By noon, the entire office felt off. People walked slowly, whispered more aggressively, and gave careful glances toward the HR wing. Something big was coming. Everyone felt it. Around 1 p.m., I saw Rowan storm out of HR, face red, tie crooked. He walked straight to the elevator and left without speaking to anyone. Half an hour later, Halden came out too, but he looked different. His normal swagger was gone. He looked cracked. As he passed my desk, I expected a comment, maybe even a threat. Instead, he just muttered, "This isn't over." But we both knew it was. The rest of the day crawled by. At 4:52 p.m., I received an email from HR asking me to come back Monday morning for official conclusions. My hands trembled. This was it. When I walked out of the building, the sunset painted the sky orange and pink. For the first time in months, I breathed easily. I had survived. Now I just had to wait. The weekend felt endless. I tried to relax, watched TV, cleaned my apartment, even tried baking, but nothing distracted me for long. What if HR sided with Halden? What if Rowan pulled strings behind the scenes? Sunday night, I barely slept. But Monday morning came anyway. I dressed calmly, though my heart raced every few minutes. When I reached the office parking lot, several coworkers stood quietly near the entrance. They watched me walk inside with wide eyes. Something had definitely happened. Inside, HR called me in immediately. The same lead rep sat across from me, but this time, he looked serious, almost apologetic. "Nia," he began, "after extensive review, we found clear evidence of misconduct from both Manager Halden and Senior Manager Rowan." My breath stopped. They engaged in coordinated edits, manipulation of task logs, and attempted redirection of project failure onto you. I swallowed hard. "As of this morning," the rep continued, "Rowan has resigned, and Halden has been terminated effective immediately." My eyes stung. "We apologize," he said softly. "You were not at fault." I exhaled slowly. It was finally over. Or so I thought. The next hours were a blur. Coworkers came up to me quietly, giving soft congratulations or just patting my shoulder. Some looked embarrassed for not believing me sooner. But the biggest shock came around noon. The director of product development, a woman named Alara, asked me to join her in her office. "Nia," she said gently, "I've been reviewing your work." She pulled up charts, reports, planning sheets, things I had worked on for months. "You're one of the strongest planners we have," she said. "You kept this project moving even while being sabotaged." My throat tightened. Then she said the last thing I expected. "I'd like to offer you the role of acting project manager for now." I stared at her. "Me? You've already been doing half the work. We want someone steady, someone who can rebuild trust." For the first time in a long time, I felt something warm inside, hope. I accepted the offer quietly. As I left her office, I didn't smile or brag. I just breathed deeply. Quiet revenge didn't need noise. It needed results. And now I finally had them. Becoming acting project manager felt unreal at first. I stood in front of the team that Monday afternoon, hands shaking a little. I know it's been a rough week for everyone, I said. But we're moving forward. Together.
People nodded, some relieved.
I spent the next few hours rewriting schedules, cleaning up bad code, fixing deadlines, and assigning tasks based on real strengths, not favoritism. The mood shifted almost instantly. By evening, several teammates stayed late willingly, helping me rebuild the mess Halden and Rowan had caused. At 7:30 p.m., Jada came to my new desk. "You know," she said with a grin, "you're irreplaceable now." I laughed quietly, but inside, her words warmed something deep. Later that night, as I shut off my computer, I thought back to all those days when I felt small, scared, or lost. Now I stood in the same office, but taller. Halden had tried to erase me. Instead, he pushed me into becoming someone stronger. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. I ran meetings, checked in on developers, sent status reports, and rebuilt trust with clients. The big client project, almost ruined, was now moving forward again. People started relying on me. Even the department head began asking for my input on planning calls. But something else happened too. Coworkers began telling me stories. Stories about Halden. Stories about Rowan. Stories about edited emails, shifted deadlines, strange late-night changes. I realized something chilling. I wasn't the first person they tried to bury. I was just the first person who fought back hard enough to win. One afternoon, I went to the break room and found a quiet older staff member named Omar washing his mug. He looked over and said softly, "Good job, Nia. You did what many of us couldn't." "Why didn't anyone speak up before?" I asked. He sighed.
Fear.
And the belief that it wouldn't change anything. I nodded slowly. But now, everything had changed. Because people finally saw what power looked like when used right, not to crush, but to lift. The new project version was nearing release, and tension was high. But for the first time, it wasn't a fearful tension, it was focused, determined. I worked late most nights, double-checking everything. One Wednesday evening, I found an email from the client asking for a last-minute feature demonstration. Panic flickered through me for a second, but then I exhaled. I knew this system better than anyone. The next morning, I presented the demo on video call. My voice shook a little at first, but I grew stronger as I spoke. When the call ended, my team clapped softly behind me. "We're back on track," I said, smiling. "Let's finish strong." Later that day, I got an unexpected message from Alara. "Stop by my office before you leave today." My stomach dipped, but I went. When I stepped in, she smiled. "I watched your presentation," she said. "You carried it with skill." Then she slid a small envelope toward me. "A company bonus," she said. "To thank you for saving the project." My breath caught. It wasn't the money that moved me. It was the recognition. Something I had once believed I would never earn. Friday evening came, and with it, final prep for the big release. The office buzzed with excitement. I gathered everyone for one last check-in. "You all did amazing work," I told them. "Let's trust it." After the meeting, I stepped outside to get some air. The sky was turning purple, the wind cool on my face. My phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize called. When I answered, the voice on the line made my stomach drop. "Nia?" It was Halden. I froze. He let out a shaky breath. "I know you don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to say something." Silence. Then he said, "I was wrong. You were never the problem. I was." I didn't respond. He continued, "I lost everything. I just needed to say this before I disappear." My throat felt tight, not from sadness, but from the strange finality in his voice. "I hope," he said, "you understand that I underestimated you." Then he hung up. I stood there, the wind cold against my cheeks. The man who once told me I would never be irreplaceable had just proven he was. The next morning, the software launched smoothly. No bugs. No crashes. No panic. The relief in the office was almost electric. "Great work, everyone," I said, and the cheer that rose made my chest warm. A few hours later, the client emailed glowing feedback. Then Ilara called me into her office again. "This project was the biggest one this quarter," she said. "And it succeeded because you refused to let it fall apart." She leaned back in her chair. "How would you feel about keeping the project manager position permanently?" My heart leaped into my throat. "I'd be honored," I said quietly. She smiled. "It's yours." Walking out of her office felt surreal. I sat at my new desk, the one that once belonged to Halden, and rested my hands on the smooth surface. This was mine now. Not by luck, not by favoritism, by resilience. Life slowly shifted after that. I stopped waking up with dread. I stopped doubting every step. I started trusting myself again. One afternoon, while organizing old project files, I found a handwritten note stuck inside a binder. It was from months ago, written during a period when I had almost given up. "Maybe I don't belong here." I stared at the words for a long time. Then I tore the note into tiny pieces and let them fall into the trash. Because I knew the truth now. I did belong here. I had always belonged here. People stopped seeing me as the girl who almost got fired. Now they saw me as the manager who turned the project around. It felt good. Not loud, not dramatic, just good in a quiet, steady way. Exactly the kind of victory that lasts. One afternoon weeks later, Jada joined me in the break room with 2 cups of tea. "To freedom," she joked, handing me one. I laughed. "Freedom feels nice." She sat beside me. "You know, I think what you did gave others courage. People feel safer now." "Really?" She nodded. "You showed everyone that even someone with power can be taken down if they abuse it." I stared into my cup, feeling a mix of pride and disbelief. "I just didn't want to let him win," I whispered. "And you didn't." We sat quietly for a moment. Then she asked, "If you could go back, would you do anything different?" I thought hard. "No," I finally said. "Everything that happened made me stronger." And for the first time, I truly meant it. A month later, the new project cycle began. This time, I stood at the front of the room, charts ready, plans organized, and team waiting. "We're going to build something even better than before," I told them. I saw trust in their eyes. Trust one once feared I would never earn again. After the meeting, I walked through the office hall, touching the flash drive still tucked in my bag. I kept it not out of fear, but as a reminder of how far I had come, a reminder of who I became when pushed to the edge, a reminder that quiet revenge doesn't destroy, it transforms. When I reached my desk, I sat down, inhaled deeply, and smiled to myself. This was the life I almost lost, and the life I rebuilt, piece by piece, step by step. 3 days after the launch, the most unexpected thing happened. My phone rang while I was packing up to leave. It was an unknown number again. I answered cautiously. "Nia?" The voice belonged to the company's regional director, someone I had never even met. "I just reviewed the performance report," he said. "Your name came up several times. Exceptional work." My heart thumped. Then he added, "Funny enough, your old boss called us a few days ago, trying to get his position back." I froze. "What happened?" I asked. "He was told the truth," the director said. "That he was the one who was replaceable." I stood there in silence, feeling a quiet triumph spread through me. When the call ended, I walked out of the building into the cool air, letting the moment sink in. Halden had been wrong about me from the start. I wasn't replaceable. I mattered. And in the end, he was the one who reached out 3 days later because he finally understood what I had always known. I was never the one who needed him. He was the one who should have feared losing me.